Hello, friends. We're back. I'm Rachel Archelaus. This is Carrie Roldan. And today we're talking about how to stay motivated through your life's work journey. As I know for me, it has changed a lot since I started working, and I've done a lot of different things. And Carrie was just about to tell us what her journey has been like. Oh, yeah. And she knew she wanted it to be fulfilling. So how did that look for you? How did you find that?
Well, I think it was rare at least amongst my peers to expect work to be fulfilling, right? So maybe people wanted that, but it seemed like that wasn't really a thing that you were allowed to have. It was more likely that it was a trade-off between work that's fulfilling and work that's high paying. And so initially, I kind of fell into every single one of my jobs, which maybe you did too. So I decided after I finished college that I wanted to be a coach. And the best way to be a coach and earn money is to be a coach and teacher. And so I became a coach first, and I literally fell into a teaching job there. It was at a private school, and I didn't have my teaching credential, but they were like, hey, get in school to get your credential and we can hire you. And so I did that, which then led to a full time teaching job in a public school. And there were parts of that job that was fulfilling. The parts of the job that was fulfilling was actually like being in the classroom and engaging with the people. And I taught high school English and Spanish. And both of those subjects, there's a lot of engaging with what's relevant in their lives right now. And so, like that part, right, I really loved about teaching. But there was lots of stuff that went with that job that just weren't in alignment with me. And one of the biggest things was actually the other teachers complaining about their students and how awful they are and how dumb they are and how they don't like that was a total drain. But what happened for me is that I recognized I love coaching. I love it. I spend all my time thinking about it. I'm like
And we're
planning all of
talking about coaching track.
Yes. Yes. Coaching cross country and track. Um, so I was like, I love that. But I didn't love a lot of the parts of teaching. And so when I became pregnant with my daughter, luckily we were in a place where my husband was like, he didn't actually say, why don't you quit teaching? I was like, I'm going to quit teaching, but we could still eat. It was tight, but we could still eat. And so I started then really just coaching. And that was awesome, right? But same things. There was parts of coaching and athletics that I really loved. And as it turned out, those parts were the building a culture and building a team and building athletes up and using their running as an analogy for like their life and character building. And it's all the things that I wind up doing now and love. So the point of the story is that each job I have, I sort of refined it, right? So it worked out in my coaching with my husband. He was the boys coach, I was the girls coach. So it worked out really well where we wound up putting our strengths together, and that I wasn't doing the parts of coaching that didn't light me up. I was only doing the parts that really lit me up. I wasn't, doing things that drained me. I got to only do things that like felt amazing and things that were natural to me and things that I was curious about, like, could this work? Let's try this, right? So it felt like I was playing in my work. But by the time I had 3 kids, that was still something that I loved doing, but it didn't fit in my life so much anymore. That's when I came to do the kind of coaching I do now. But it started out as, oh, this will be so fulfilling. And then probably like a lot of business owners, right? Like, oh, I'll build a business around exactly what I love. And then, oh my God, how do you build a business? There's so much crap I have to do that I don't want to do. And I got to learn how to be this. And I went through a whole arc of taking, okay, I want to show up for people in a way where I get to inspire them and encourage them and help them look at their life differently or their business differently and help them think in a different way and steer them into their gifts, right? Like all of that is what I love doing. And I started my coaching business there, but then I pretty quickly turned it into a job and like started to do a lot of things that I wasn't good at or didn't want to do, or people told me that I had to do. Um, and so it wasn't really until um, you came into my life and a few other people like you, right? And maybe it was a recognition of that pattern of refinement that has just sort of happened so naturally, anyways. And I've talked about this in conversations with you. And when I finally realized I wasn't making money doing it the hard way, so I'll just try something easier. Um, that's when my business sort of moved and evolved. But yeah, I'm same as you. Like when you're talking, I know we're talking about motivation here today, and I feel like that's a tricky. I feel like we're kind of sneaky in the way that we're about to talk about it because
Totally. Yeah.
um, it's I what I find is when I tried in my business to motivate myself in the way that I think most people think of motivation, I was not successful.
Mm-hmm.
And when I relaxed into probably what you and I are going to talk about, um, that natural refining process has happened in my business and continues to happen, where it's just more and more and more of what feels good and what I'm naturally good at and curious about and excited about, and less of all the things we think we have to do.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. It's so funny too. Like you were looking for fulfillment and you found threads of it wherever you were, right? And you just allowed that to guide you into the place where you are now. And of course, it's still going to keep growing. There's still refining to do. And I was definitely looking for, I knew what I wanted when I was like 17. I started an online store of crafts, basically, like pre-Etsy. I was like painting flower pots and making candles and stuff. And I knew I wanted like the laptop lifestyle. And so I bought one of those huge Dells, it like weighed 5 pounds and it was this thick. It ended up melting a couple of years later. It was more expensive than a Mac because I don't know if they had MacBooks, probably, but they were. Um, so anyway, I knew I wanted that. I wanted freedom. I wanted to work for myself, but it took me a really long time to that point full time where I knew what I was doing and I could rely on it. And yeah, it was like, oh, I know how to make things and I'm pretty good at technology. And what was available at the time was pretty easy to use, believe it or not. I had a Yahoo store and um, but there was so much I didn't know, and that's not really what I wanted to be doing. I didn't want to really be painting flower pots all the time. It's cool for people who do, and that is your thing, but it wasn't really for me. And so it took 10 more years really until I gave it another shot of, I want to see if I can really do this. So yeah, for the past 10 years, I've been doing this full time. And it has been a journey and it's been a refinement. I've gone through a lot of different phases in it, some more stressful than others. Like, I don't know if I've officially burned out ever, but I have changed my focus because where my heart sings has changed. So I think it can be hard if you're in a job to stay motivated, and we'll just switch this right here to stay inspired because we don't like really the word motivated, because motivated for me feels like I should want to do this. And Carrie, actually, why don't you give us your amazing should converter statement? Do you have that?
Well, yeah. So I use this with my clients all the time, right? Because should is really, when you get down to what should is and what it feels like, it's not yours. It's always coming from somebody
Mm-hmm.
else. The fact that you think you should do something is actually like It's not coming from you. It's like the world is telling me I should, or when I was young, my mom told me I should, or like it's should is never coming from you. So I use the phrase, if I really wanted to, I could. And that helps shift into like, oh, I could, if I really wanted to, I could totally lose 20 pounds. Do I really want to? If I really wanted to, I could totally have 20 clients. Do I really want them? Right? It
Mm-hmm.
helps shift the way you're thinking about things.
Yeah. So luckily for me, I figured out pretty early in my second business round, right? So the 10-year ago one, where I started off doing psychic development coaching with people, and I had a blog, and it was a few years later that I had my first online course. But I learned that where I'm excited to go is where the money is. And if I wait too long, so if I stay doing something that's working, but I'm not really into it, my heart's not really into it, the money will dry up. So I don't know if that's the case for everyone. I just know that that's what would happen to me. If I was in a program, people were enrolling, but my heart began to be like, it's a should now. I should show up. I should sell this again. I should talk about it. I should market it. It's like, it's more of a job, like Carrie was saying in her first iterations too. The money would just dry up. But I would always have another curiosity. Whenever my excitement would wane in one area, there would be a shiny thing over here. And it would be like, ooh, I would love to talk about this. I would love to investigate this. And if I go there, then the inspiration comes for whatever it is to sell. And wait, I'm going to sneeze. Okay, it passed. Then the money would go up, right? So it can be scary when you're working for yourself and if you're anything like me, I can't even make myself do something I don't want to do anymore. And so there's no question that I wouldn't go to the new thing and build that. But there is usually a point where it can be a little scary where you're like, okay, this has been working. Everyone tells you to just keep doing what's working, double down on what's working, right? If I did that, you wouldn't see me because I wouldn't exist anywhere on the internet. Um, but I've never been let down by following my curiosity and my excitement and my inspiration. And that comes with the motivation. So when you're inspired, like even how I'm talking right now, you have the energy to act. So motivation is kind of like, where do I get the energy to act? How do I force myself to have the energy to act? Whereas inspiration, it's an idea, it's a feeling, it's a calling, and it comes with the energy. So it's just an easier way to go. It's kind of like um, moving into the ease of life and the flow of abundance by changing yourself from having to be motivated to finding your inspiration.
Yes, and amen. And it's making me think about the way I see. So I am like, people always say, "Oh my God, you're so motivating. You motivate me so much." And I don't think that that's possible. I don't think that a person can motivate another person. And I actually work with a lot of people who the questions they're asking me are, how do I motivate my team? Or how do I
Mm-hmm.
motivate my people? Like, how do I get other people to do what I want them to do? And the short answer is like, be awesome.
Yes, agreed.
Like, that's how you motivate people, because people aren't motivated by me. They're not motivated by any one thing that I say. It sparks, they get inspired. Something I say will line up with something that's active in them. And those vibrations like get talking to each other and they grow. And that's very different than what I see motivating. Like the only thing I can think about like motivating, I'm seeing like a workout video and there's like someone doing work and somebody else is like yelling at them like, come on, you could do more, stronger, faster, higher. And that's so short lived, right? That's so like unsustainable. And so talking about motivation is like, why would anyone want to do that? Like, why would you want to exert, it's like running uphill. So when you run uphill, it's the most amount of effort for the least amount of return. Like why would I spend my time like really trying to get people to run hard uphill when I could just teach them how to run fast downhill? It's the same thing with that idea of like inspiring versus motivating.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing with ourselves, right? That if we're feeling the should, I have to switch topics, not switch topics, but switch way I'm talking about it, because I was inspired this morning to talk about something on my business page that is so relevant to what we're talking about right now.
Great.
And it is this, so you and I, this is all, so many things are happening right now, Rachel. Well, I also, we both have this sweatshirt that says do only what you love. And mine is getting like old and it's more of a pajama shirt now. And so I was like, I need to order me another one of those. So I was in that like frame of mind this morning. And then I was meditating, and what came up in my meditation was orange. It was like, talk about orange. And if you do intuitive art, you know that you assign meaning to colors. And my meaning for orange is it is alignment. It is fully embodied self. It is joyful focus. So orange for me, and I was recognizing this morning, is living in your strengths. But before I can even say that, then I was like, oh, I need to share this video I made, I don't know how many years ago, about strengths and weaknesses, and how people tend to think that a strength is something that you're good at, and a weakness is something that you're bad at. But I think that that's not true at all. I think that a strength is joyful focus. A strength is fully embodied self. A strength is something that while you're doing it, you feel alive. You feel lit up. You feel full of yourself. And a weakness is anything that you're doing that as you're doing it, it depletes you. And so how I stay motivated, how I stay awesome in my business, how I stay only doing what I love is a commitment to living in my strengths, which is the same thing you're talking about, right?
Yep.
It's a commitment to knowing what lights me up, knowing the kinds of things that light me up. So that refinement thing that we were talking about in the beginning, where I was trying things and like thinking, oh, I could be good at that. And then finding what parts of this light me up and what parts of this am I happy to let go of, and sort of letting that happen. The same thing is happening in my business. People who we serve business as we more fully embody, as we are able to step boldly into knowing. This is like you were talking about the money. Same thing happened for me, right? I would do something that for a while felt like the best I could have. And then as I was doing that thing, I would realize, ooh, I want more of this and less of that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I let go of the less of that, right, the money kind of fizzled out, because we are communicating with our higher selves all the time, right? And our higher self is constantly moving us in the direction that we are asking to go.
Yes.
And if we don't go willingly, it'll create stuff that pushes us in that direction anyways, right?
Mm-hmm.
One day realize, like I did and like you have, why am I doing this? Why am I making this hard on myself if I'm no longer making money at it anyways, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I've talked in circles, but hopefully I've answered the sort of the question about staying in your strengths,
Mm-hmm.
which is alignment, fully embodied self, being like doing only the things that light you up. That's revolutionary.
I know. I just had that thought, like, because I do hear from people who are in jobs they don't like and they don't know what to do. And the idea of like you did, focusing on what you do enjoy about it, because there has to be something. That's your first step. The step of moving your momentum from the negative to the positive. That's the first step, because then you have access to the pathway forward that's faster. But if you stay in the negative, if you stay focused on that, you can't get anywhere. You just dig yourself deeper. But in going with that whole revolutionary thing of doing only what you love, Intimate Alien, who said that, asks us a lot, why are we doing what we're doing? Is it so that we can buy food and pay the rent? Is it so that we can feel fulfilled? Is it so that we can experience more of ourselves, feel alive, experience our potential? What if all of those things were taken care of? The money to survive, the feeling of fulfillment, the feeling of living in your potential, that most alive feeling that you can have. What if that's all taken care of if you just go directly to doing only what you love, and you stop tolerating the things that don't feel good anymore, and you tell the truth to your boss that you don't like this part of your job, and give them the opportunity to say, oh, well, you don't have to do that then. That actually happened to someone I know the other day. She just decided, oh, you know what, I'll just be honest. And the boss was like, oh yeah, well, let's figure it out. Right? So if you keep tolerating, and this is like, it's not a lecture, not a lecture. You're doing fine. You're perfect. I'm saying this to myself too. But if we stop tolerating what is just okay, what we don't enjoy, there is the better side of that waiting for us. It's not a risk. It's not a risk. It feels like a risk, but it's not a risk. There's always a reward for upping your standards. I know Carrie just shared a quote from me that says, when you raise your vibration, you raise your standards. And it's absolutely true. And I think if we can do anything, we can inspire others by walking our talk and leading by example, and um, living that life of moving in the direction of doing only what we love, and living that more and more each day, and proving that it's possible, right? There are a lot of examples of that, and I love that. And I think the first one I ever found in my life was the movie Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. I know it's fictional, but it wasn't to me. It was an absolutely resonant view of life. It was like my first role model, and my role model. I was at a Brendan Burchard event many years ago at the High Performer Academy or something, and he asked a question, who taught you how to think? Who taught you how to think? Who gave you the philosophy that you live by today? And it's Willy Wonka, right? He lives in a product of his own creation. It's creative. It makes money. It's an empire of global proportions. And he does it his way. And I was like, that is what I want from the first moment I saw it. And so even if you have a little bit of a role model that's fictional, it's totally okay. Because if it resonates with you, then it's true for you. So I don't know if that brought anything up for you, Carrie, but my little rant.
Oh no, I love it. I know you have a Willy Wonka thing, but I love the way you just said that like that's how you learned how to think. That's actually where you chose your worldview, was from
Yes.
that. That's awesome. No, what came up for me was actually a story that's really okay. It is great if we could just, like the person who wanted to talk to their boss about something, or okay, here's what I want to say. I like what you're saying about what's on the other side of what you're afraid of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a ton of, and I am a huge fan of rock bottom, actually. Like, I'm a fan of, like, because your life will, if the more you resist something, right, the more you resist
Mm-hmm.
what's happening, or what you're asking for, the more you resist what you're asking for, like, the I guess, bigger catastrophe, or the harder you make it for that thing to come in. But if you're asking for it, it comes in. And this has happened so many times in my life where I felt like I am at an either or. I am like, and I don't like either scenario. So my kids now often are like complaining about, well, I want this, but I don't want that. I want, but I don't want. But what they're thinking is, in order to have what I want, I have to somehow do what I don't want, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I lived that way for a really, really long time. And I was working with a friend of mine who said, well, what about and? Hey, what if you could and it's not to say that I didn't have some moments of what felt like rock bottom, where it was like, oh, the thing that I don't want, right? The thing. But it turned out in every case where the worst thing, the worst possible scenario happened for me, there was an and. There was a like, oh, I can have what I want and the other thing that I also want, or that it just worked out. And there's a situation going on with someone who I know right now where uh, they were wanting more money, and seeing, and I think more fulfillment. And um, on the one hand, more money, more fulfillment, more significance. And on the other hand, they were like, but I really like what I have now. I've got freedom. I'm super comfortable. And it was that scenario where they were like, do I want to give up this in order to have that? And it's taken a while, right? But the asking was strong enough, and a little bit of coaching on my part of like, well, is it possible that you could have everything that you want, right? And it's taken some time. And then even like in their asking, is it possible that you could have even more? Is it right? Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching that scenario play out where like if we just open ourselves up, if we're just really honest with ourselves, like what do I really want? Not what do I think I can have.
Mm-hmm.
You said you get what you tolerate, and you do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so, but you also get, what you're expecting, right? Tolerating and expecting are kind of the same ball of wax. So, yeah, it's happening for someone who I know right now where they're recognizing, oh, and it's been a process. It wasn't just like a snap, right? It's been can I allow myself to take this step? Could I allow myself to believe this much? Could I have that conversation? Could I dip my toe in the water? But slowly but surely, as they maybe no longer tolerating things that they didn't like in their current situation, expecting that they can have the everything they want and everything they already have, that has been inspiring.
Yeah. I mean, well, if we're going vibrational, the truth is that we are getting everything we're vibrationally asking for. We're getting it all. Like everything in our lives right now is what we've asked for. It's what we're vibrating at. It's a reflection of where we are vibrationally. So if we want to change that outside world, we have to do the inner work first. Wherever we are holding those, things we're tolerating, that's in there. Wherever we're avoiding a subject, that's in there, right? So it is that work of, like Carrie, you were doing with your client, changing the belief systems, raising the vibration, right? Like aligning to what it is that we're wanting so that it can show up for us, right? Nothing can show up for us that we're not in alignment with. So, like the person who had talked to their boss, they've been working on aligning to wanting more and expecting more, and that's why that statement was able to come out of their mouth that day. It wasn't a planned thing. It just kind of happened. And it happened at the right time because they were in alignment with it. So, I mean, I know I sound like a broken record all the time, but it's so true. do your daily practice, do your meditation, do your appreciation work. I mean, how many of the world's richest people talk about meditation and gratitude? Like, it's not because they have tons of time in their day for all these things that don't work, right? It's because that's what helped them get there. It's the real work of this planet. Even though it looks solid, it's not so solid. We're actually the ones creating all of it. So we're the puzzle maker. It's like all these little pieces in our life are, they seem random. They seem like they're just there. They move around, but we're the ones that put everything there. And I just like to remember that.
So me too. And that has been, I was telling you, I recently like re-remembered that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think this probably happens to a lot of us where you have an epiphany, you grow in a certain way, and then you settle into that new level of growth. And then it takes something, a little bit of contrast or a new desire, right? But it takes something else to sort of like shove you into, oh, I'm not done. I've never done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're constantly growing. I had an epiphany the other day that I shared with Carrie, and she was like, "Oh, yeah, I'm so happy you're seeing that now." We can often see these things for others, which is why people can coach each other. But yeah, we're always growing.
Well, so I just had this like nudge and to revisit a book that I've read several times but hadn't read in like a year or two. And lo and behold, and of course it's talking about what you're talking about, Rachel, the puzzle pieces and how it's, you know, I am I am the it's making me want to watch The Matrix again because I haven't watched The
Mm.
Matrix in so long. And I think the first time I watched it, I didn't really like, I got it, but I didn't get it. But now I think it would be like super fun to watch. But anyways, why am I telling you this? I can't remember. There was a point and it flew out of my head.
You
Um,
got another epiphany from the Busting Loose book.
yes, but it was just about that I was going back to that. Oh, and remembering. Here it is. It's remembering. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that back around. Um, Remembering what I already know has been super helpful. Re experiencing what was this huge, massive epiphany a while ago and just re experiencing that and reintegrating it has been massive for me recently. Like remembering that. And then I was listening to something, I think it's Neville Goddard or Neil Goddard, I can't remember, but somebody had this whole practice on remembering that has been super helpful for me in creating and kind of motivating. So the way that it works, the way I was playing with it this morning was to, I was in a place of, there's something that's going on and there's like a little, and it's like so minuscule, but there's a little like, with a pebble in my sock, like as far as my life's going, right? There's an issue right now that's a little irksome that I'm like relaxing around and knowing that it's going to work out. But I feel my mind continuing to go back to that. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel when it does that, I feel myself being frustrated and trying to figure it out. And bless you, Rachel, and being like disappointed and feeling not valued and like having a lot of feelings that like aren't real, right? And I don't, well, they feel real, but they're not what I really want. And so I'm recognizing I've created this, right? Here it is, I've created it. And so wanting to take the power away from that. And there's all sorts of processes that you can do. But the one that was working for me this morning was I actually stopped and I was journaling at the time and I was like, I remember when I felt that way. And it's the way that I'm feeling now, right? I remember when I felt really undervalued and blah, blah, blah. And I was describing right now in this moment, but by choosing to frame it as a memory, it also took me to the other side. Like I
Mm.
was able to like say, I remember how I'm feeling right now, but not feel that way because I was remembering. Does that make any sense at all?
It
And it
does,
was,
yeah. Because
it
you're
was so,
separating yourself from it.
yeah, it was so great. And it allowed me to move into the space of, quickly like saying what I did to solve it, right? Which was perfect for me and helped me relax. And now it helps me because the situation isn't resolved, but it helped me go from how am I going to figure this out to like, oh, this is fun to let this play out, right? Knowing, like what Intimate Alien says, what if it's already all taken care of? What if you just only do what you love?
Yeah.
And so knowing like, oh, I can just relax there because I know what I want. I know it's all taken care of. And I know how I want to show up and how I want to be. So it's really great. But it did take me like doing an actual, not just leaning back and being like, I know this, right? It took me doing a little bit of inner work and asking myself, how can I reframe this? And letting the universe provide, and just right at the right moment, somebody else's, hey, do this activity today.
Mm-hmm.
But right, I
Right,
was a,
because you were in a good enough feeling place to access that, because you were doing your journaling. It
yep.
gave you room to move through it. I think that is, if there is any key takeaway to today, I know we're being a little random, that's it. You have to put yourself in a place to be able to access your wisdom, your guidance, to know where to move you, because I'm in a position where I train people to do something for work, right? So I'm training them to have a new skill and to go out there in the world and make money. And I think for me, when I was first doing it, and for them, all the graduates that we have, the number one thing of, are they going to get too overwhelmed and then burnt out before they even really get going, is, are they getting stuck in the negative, in the worry, in the what should I do? They keep themselves from their guidance that could easily guide them to the next step and the next client and the next thing to do. And you talking about that just made that so much clearer for me. I'm actually creating a graduation manual for them right now of like, clear as day, this is how you can do the things. But none of that will work if they're not in a place of receiving their own guidance, of staying in inspiration, because that's really what is going to hook them up to their fulfillment, their reason for doing it, their spark of joy, which will then bring in the clients. So if you're listening, if you've ever been burnt out, if you've ever been unmotivated, if you've ever been in the place where I don't know what to do next, I need to make money, I want to, then move over into a better feeling place. Like, do some daily practices, do some journaling, and then learn how to calibrate yourself in those areas that aren't feeling good. And for a lot of people, that's money, like, because we feel our potential, we feel it's so big. And then we look around us and we're like, why doesn't this match up? But just know that it is already done. And lining up with it is the real work. Feeling good, feeling better. And when you can, do like Carrie did and just calibrate to where you want to be with that particular thing by soothing yourself with words and turning it into a memory. And there's so many different processes that you can do. So I think we covered this. How do we stay motivated? We don't. We get inspired.
and I think the motivation, if it's really inspiration, but if we're looking for like what is the driver, for me, it is my life reminds me that the work that we're talking about, Rachel, right? It's the only thing that actually matters.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy to get caught up in the illusion of reality, right? Like to but my life will continually steer me back the easy way or the hard way, right?
Mm-hmm.
My life will continually steer me back to what I'm asking for. And it's, we have this conversation a lot, right? Like it's one way or another, it all leads back to your vibration. All of it matters.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think the longer we do this, at least for me, the easier it is to make that stuff a priority.
Yeah. In fact, I've been really playing around with this idea of being like unlimitedly wealthy, right? It's not even a phrase, but I've been embodying that. And I had a weird day yesterday. I went to go get a haircut from my stylist. I walked in and they told me I was an hour early. And I was like, that never has happened before. And I thought, oh gosh, I'm downtown. I don't have anywhere else to go for an hour. I can't sit in their lobby because, everyone is shutting their lobbies down. And this is so annoying, right? I don't even have my computer to work. And I thought, what? If I had unlimited money right now, it wouldn't be any different. Like I would be in the same position, right? I would still have an hour to kill. Sure, I could go home and come back. Like I have the same options. So what do I want to do about this? Do I want to be mad or do I want to feel good for an hour? Right. And then something else happened a little bit later and it was the same thing. It's the same choice we have to make whether we have everything that we've ever asked for in front of us or not. Right. You have the mansion, you have the cars, you have the unlimited nature, you have the perfect family, the perfect pets, and then you get a flat tire. Like you still get to call AAA, but you still have to wait an hour, right? It's like we're still, no matter what our life looks like, going to have challenges and things that go wrong. But the question always is going to be, how do I want to feel about this right now? How do I want to feel right now? That's it. So that has been really helping me just embody that even further. It's always the same thing, like Carrie said. It's always about me and my vibration and how I want to feel. It doesn't matter what the world looks like. And it's so refreshing because so many of us put our worth on the other side of that. Like our worth is when we accumulate all these things. Our worth is when we can prove that we're rich. Our worth is ... But it's not. It's just an illusion. It's going to be amazing to experience all the things that you accumulate and accomplish. Of course, that's why we're here, to have fun and enjoy all of it. But it's not about racing to get those to prove anything, right? The proving is in the I can feel how I want to feel, so I'm going to do it.
And that's radical, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's in a coaching group I'm in right now. That's what we're leading people through, is like matching up your behaviors with how a worthy person would behave, right? If I felt worthy, how would I behave about this? Which is kind of the same thing as if I had a limited abundance, how would I use this hour, right? The
Mm-hmm.
same. What's coming up for me though, and it's a bit of a subject change, but feel like super relevant, is it's not a subject change. It's just an add-on. Especially now in 2020, especially as everyone is, not everyone, lots of people are looking at this year as like the worst of the worst, and what else bad could happen. And I mean, honestly, like there's a group of people that I'm a part of where they're like, oh, that's so 2020, right? Where like like, of course the worst case scenario happened. Of course the random thing. And it's interesting. I choose to view everything as happening for my highest and best.
Same.
So like my perspective is sometimes different, and I forget, right? I forget that not everyone in the world looks at everything as a blessing, but exactly what you're saying, right? Why wouldn't I? If I got a choice between looking at
Yeah.
something as a blessing or a curse, why wouldn't I decide to call it a blessing? But I just wanted to say that, like, in this time, there's a ton of contrast, like, happening in our lives. Um, but if you're choosing to look at 2020 as how would someone with unlimited abundance handle 2020, right? Handle this, or how would someone with um, a total sense of worthiness respond to what's going on in 2020? It really shifts things. Like it really does. And I have a habit of, I perhaps it's a I'm thinking about the thing you said earlier about who taught you how to think. And I'm wondering where this came from in myself. It doesn't matter. But my habit is when bad things happen, to immediately assume that this is actually something really good. Or when something terrible seems to be going on in the outside world, to be like, but not for me. But I'm the exception to the rule. And because that is my belief system, like I'm watching 2020 turn out kind of awesome. Like I was on a run with my friend this morning. My kids are on online school and they were complaining about the connectivity issues and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, all of that's there. But you know what I love? I totally love the ease of my mornings now. Like I had the don't want, right? Of like, oh, the scramble in the morning and now like I love it. I come back from my run, my kids are making themselves breakfast, they're getting ready to like, wow, this is kind of awesome. And of course, this is the refinement that we were talking about. Of course, there's going to be things that come up when we don't like, but there's also like, how can we just make this easy? How can we just continue to lean more into what we love about it and let what we don't love fall away and figure itself out? So that's my approach to 2020. That's how I guess if we're how I'm staying motivated in 2020, paying attention to everything that's amazing about it and trusting that the other stuff, it's working out.
I think that wraps this up perfectly because it can be applied to anyone, anywhere. If there's stuff that isn't going your way, that you feel bad when you look at it, stop looking at it. Stop looking at it. Even if it's part of your job, find a way to think about something else. Or when you're talking to someone that you don't like in your work, I remember when I used to work with you, like do the little mental tricks, right? Get yourself through, find a way to feel better wherever you are. That is the key. So I love this. If you want to do some intuitive art drawings on your own about this topic, how can I move into feeling better every day? What daily practices can I do to feel better every day? How can I find my inspiration again? Right? Just think about where you want to be and how you want to feel and how to make that easier to find. If you have more specific questions, of course, you can ask Intuitive Art that too. That's what it's so good at. And if you want help decoding, go to our Facebook group. It is facebook.com/groups/Intuitive Art Academy. And we're happy to help you decode or just congratulate you for doing a drawing. So yeah, anything else to add, Carrie?
No, I said no and then I started talking. I'm just really excited for everyone who's watching, who's like with us on this journey and doing this super important work of this work, right? The inner work. And I am so excited for what's coming down the pike for all of you guys, for what's coming for you. And intuitive art should be.
You can get this sweatshirt at Intuitive Art Shop and learn about all of our wonderful programs where you can hang out with me and Carrie more. All right, we'll leave you with that. Thanks for the topic, Dina. We love you, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Bye for now.